What's good, agents? Welcome to the 18th episode of the Sideboard Podcast. It's been forever since we've all had a chance to kind of come together and talk about cardboard and all things card games. Life's been keeping everyone busy, but we're back now, hopefully back to our monthly cadence. A lot of stuff to cover and talk about today, but before that, I gotta ask, how was everyone's holidays and any fun plans going into 2026?
For me, it's a lot of traveling. We were like 2.5, almost 3 weeks of December. We weren't even like home. We were traveling like all over. So it was busy and hectic, but it was fun. It's weird, man. Like, obviously you kind of get into the habit and the routine of play, because I honestly didn't even think about cards, didn't think about video games, nothing while I was gone. And then sure enough, we get back and get settled and we run some games and stuff. Like, man, I actually realized how much I miss doing this. So it's just change of pace, but everything's good. Everything went well, and good holiday season. So how about you guys?
That's fair. Happy New Year to everybody. New Year, pretending I'm different, but I'm still the same. I'm taking a smattering approach of resolutions this year. My plan is, instead of picking one thing and failing, I'm gonna pick 15 things, throw them at the wall, and if I do 3, I'm already way better than I would have been if I would have just kept to it. That being said, I've been slacking on card games as well. I mean, I've got a little bit of Magic. I've been doing some other stuff, but the holiday season is always going to be hell, and you're never going to really make it through everything because you're busy. But it is nice to be back, and I'm excited for the new year.
Nice. That's what we want to hear. Yeah, I feel that. For me too, holidays were busy. Didn't really think about New Year's resolutions. I've kind of just decided that I'm just going to start doing things and talking less about it, because I feel like that's where you get all that, oh my God, all the anticipation around I didn't do X, Y, or Z. Already started, making some changes that some of you all may have noticed on the channel. We have more consistent content. So, that's the biggest goal, is to be back and producing stuff for you guys. Back from our little mishap here, OBS said, you know what, you got through the intro a little too good, so we're just going to throw in a little wrench here. Anyway, back to making content for everybody and all that fun stuff. Back to monthly show, live streams. Comcast hates me, so we don't know when we're going to start live streaming again. That's just is what it is. But yeah, kind of it on this side.
Well, I'm glad all you boys are still breathing. I missed you.
Same.
Yes, same. Y'all were missed. It's good to be vertical and above ground. So, every day like that is a good day. Speaking of vertical and above ground, Digimon. I feel like Digimon in 2025 as a brand, as a franchise, was everywhere in the best ways possible. I don't know about you guys, but I played Time Stranger, abused the living out of the game, in New Game Plus, and still grinding through it with the DLC and all that fun stuff. That said, Frawley, I know that you've probably been in and out of Digimon, but more in it than Dan and I have. What has been kind of from what you've seen, the reception on all the stuff that isn't all Greymon, right? Everything recently has been everything that is all the video games and all the other things outside of the IP. What are some stuff that you want to either call out or that you've noticed?
Well, I mean, you talk about it being a banner year for Digimon. I can't agree more. You have Time Strangers, which was just really well received. We had a brand new show, Digimon Breakbeat. We have the TCG online client Elysium coming at some point, hopefully this year. I feel like we were just eating good the entire time. I will say Digimon has felt from November. We get Hacker Slumber, we get the new hoodie deck, we get a bunch of things. I think that's the number one complaint about deck. But it's felt like a real big lull until we're hitting January now. So we've just had pre-release this weekend for Time Stranger, the set. And we've just got 3 or 4 more products lined up. So if you were tired of the meta, they really seem to be it's going into the new year. We're just going to fire a bunch of stuff and see what's good and keep going from there.
That's so crazy. Every time I see stuff I think I remember which set it was. Maybe it was 2 sets ago now, where they had the Examon stuff. Oh man, maybe I'm actually gonna jump right back in. And then I see how many sets and what all is happening. I'm I don't think I have the the brain space to keep playing. Have you noticed is the turnout still pretty popular, at least where you are? It seems like it is where I'm at. People are still talking about the game. I still keep seeing things about the game. It's not really in my timeline anymore, but I still see it in the flesh, it feels like.
I feel like it's definitely been a big lull in our area a little bit. Since the last regionals we did was the last time I think I was like actively competitive in the game, and then casual has just kind of not to say died down, but there's just like a lot of other things to be doing. I feel like people get interested and hobbies change. Without a community, it's harder to run games. So without like wanting to run games against you guys or wanting to grind stuff or like having the time to, I think I feel much more like a Yu-Gi-Oh player where it's like, hey, I'm out for 3 months. Game is wildly different. Everything's coming out huge. What you thought was cool is already gone, and we're on to the next thing, which is good because I don't like staleness, but it does feel like if you miss a little bit of time in a TCG now, you're not just missing a little bit of time, you're missing 1 to 2 seconds.
Damn.
Yeah. I can echo that point too, because like I know that like even with Dragon Ball, like this, I wasn't really too up on the previous set 28, and then the one that just came out, set 29. I still have like all my decks, and played a handful of just casual games here and there, but wasn't really keeping up with it. And seeing the stuff that came out, I'm like, I didn't really feel like a whole like re-education, but it definitely felt like I'm like, I've got to shake the rust off. This isn't like, I was out for a week or two and then I just came back and everything was the same. Like the decks that I have been playing for the longest time, I had to like play them differently, because like you're playing so like you have to. And then people brought up to me, it's like, that deck that you've had for a year and a half, that this card that came out in set 29 does this for it, and I'm like, so yeah, I can definitely see what you mean. Like I couldn't even imagine what Digimon would be like for me, but even taking a slight break, which was like a month and a half or so during the holidays from Dragon Ball, it felt similar too. So I don't know if it's necessarily a good or a bad thing. I think in a way, for me anyways, I personally think it's a good thing, because like when you come back, it can seem overwhelming, but it makes it to where it's like, okay, cool, I'm not coming back to the format that I played 2 months ago, or like it doesn't feel stale, right? So if you can get past that initial like shock from like, oh man, there's just so much information, and you kind of start digesting it, it's not so bad. But
I mean, I do believe like Elysium is going to be what reignites the spark for me. Having a leaderboard, having a dedicated client, having something that I can grind out and do and play. I feel like that's going to be a huge factor for a lot of people. Like if you're not seeing it in your local, like I'm not seeing it as much, but Sid is seeing it. I could see that exploding even more, because giving people the tool to play will allow so many new players to come into it and get excited. And it's not as overwhelming like Dan's saying, because I can play against a computer or people online who I don't have to talk to, and then figure out what my deck is, and then come into a place, pick up all the stuff, and like execute on my deck.
Yeah. 100%.
And it'll be cool for Digimon because they'll be their first like official one, right? And I think too with that, like it's an actual game, right? Like it's supposed to have like a story and like all kinds of actual like elements to it, which will be really interesting. I think Bandai, it's about time for Digimon. I'm still kind of blown away that Fusion World, one exists, but that Dragon Ball got it first before Digimon, which it just seems like it's Digimon. Like it just feels like it's the most obvious one to have a digital client first. But maybe that just made too much sense at the time. I don't know.
I think it feels like they just bailed on Masters. They were like, this was supposed to be a Masters client to get people into Masters, and then like, but we're trying this new thing. We'll do the new thing. And then Digimon was just like, you're next. You're always gonna be the second child. You're next.
I was gonna say, I 100% think, at least like thinking about it, like a lot, like how everything played out. I'm like, Fusion World was 100%. I feel like a life raft for what Bandai needed, what they felt like they needed for Masters, because they saw that turnout and player retention, everything was started to get thin. So they're like, okay, well, we can new and shiny, right? We all can relate to that. A new set, new card game. I mean, Gundam came out, and even me, like I'm like, stuff like that. So it's like, that's element number one. Element number two, it's within the IP that people are already familiar with, so they're going to want to at least try it and pick it up. And then we all know that that's just a gateway for and then of course you add the digital client on top of that as like a quote unquote perk, or hey, we really wanted this and need it. I don't necessarily think, in my opinion, I don't think they shafted Digimon intentionally. I think it was just prioritization of like, hey, Masters we feel like could be turning into a sinking ship. We need to do this. If we're going to do this for Fusion World, we have to prioritize that first, and then Digimon will go, because Digimon was always going to be in the pipeline. Digimon was always the plan, right? Like that was never not going to be an option. I think they just kind of went the Fusion World route first. So,
Yeah.
but we could have just
And
gotten a Masters client and been fine. But
it also felt like with Digimon 2, they were trying to think of a way to how do we make this bigger than just here's a client to play the game, right?
Mm.
Like I do like the fact that they're trying to make it think of it as like an actual game, like an actual kind of like the old Yu-Gi-Oh games used to be, right? Like the old World Champion games on Championship games on DS. So it's kind of a interesting premise and I think a good thing to basically make it like a complete package, because then you'll get people who had no idea that this is like a actual thing, that just want to play Digimon stuff. Go, oh shit, this is actually pretty cool, and the story is actually good. Hopefully, I don't know, I have no idea what the story's about, but hopefully it's actually like cool.
And an add on to that too is like I've seen several other like clients or like clients work in progress type of thing that are rushed just to get them up and go, just to say that they have one, and they fail miserably. So it's like
Yeah.
if that's the case, it's like, okay, like Adrian was saying, on top of being very unique, right, being kind of in its own space of having that, if they're intentionally not rushing it to put out higher quality, then it's like, okay, it will be worth the wait, right? So you couple those two things together, and I'm optimistic for it. I mean, shoot, I anticipate trying it because, like, why not? It's an online client. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm currently most interested in the timeline / pipeline of how long product is out before it's on the client, or vice versa. Or if we get Master Duel treatment where like we don't get everything that's new. I hope it doesn't like fully become that, but I don't really know what the benefit to doing is, because I feel like there's a benefit or people wouldn't be doing it. I guess we get some more physical cards in people's hands, which is hard to argue with.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do that. I mean, especially if there's a story element, right? Like I'm thinking like you probably aren't aligning to the actual releases, because like if somebody's like, yeah, they're using the starter decks at the very beginning of the game, like I don't think you're going to be rolling in there with DNA Digivolution when the best thing they got is an Omnimon like for 6. like I don't know. Or they separate out those two modes maybe, and you just have two different card pools for like the traditional online or not. It'll be interesting to see how they set that up for sure.
and then it boils down to just trial and error, right? Like they're gonna have, no matter what type of product they put out, it's never going to be perfect. And that's not me being pessimistic. It's just being like, there's going to be some type of quirk or something that a player pulls out, or is like, there's, always those improvements. But yeah, to your point, it's like they have a lot of room to work with, a lot of creativity. I feel like they can kind of explore. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do.
That's a good point. And we just talked about Masters so much that like you guys, and we're talking about products, like how are you guys finding Masters currently? Because this year they had 2 sets, if I remember correctly.
In 2025 they had 3.
They had 3. If people were saying they're going to sunset the game, I'm curious to see how you guys feel like state of game is currently for Masters.
So yeah, last year was really weird. I can't remember, Dan. I think we were slated for 3, but that third one, Fearsome Rivals, got bumped to this year, because the third one I think was supposed to come out in like December or November. But I can't remember. I'd have to actually look. But I think that we were slated for 3, and then they bumped it, so we only got 2 last year. This year, I think it was something weird like that, and I think we're basically on this schedule now of like 3 sets a year. But last year was just weird because I'm pretty sure they bumped it, because it felt like 3 because we got that the anniversary box last year. So we had like the 3 products. But we can always look, and we can fact check in errata later.
Yeah. No, you might be right. I thought we were slated for 4 because it was every quarter. I thought it was, and then when we were supposed to get the one towards the end of the year, like either end of November, December, that's the one. This one that they just had.
Yeah.
That's the one they pushed. So I thought we got 3, but you might be right. It might be 2, and then the Annie box that felt like a subset.
Yeah. But overall, like Masters, these last 2 sets, at a local level, it's been good. It's been great. Because I still go to my Dragon Ball locals. They weren't sets that I particularly gave a shit about, if I'm being completely honest. They were fine. There's basically start up a new block, start up a new mechanic. They just added white as a color, which has a really interesting mechanic of like the hidden mode cards, basically on some Yu-Gi-Oh! Flip the card face down, and it becomes like just a thing on the board that nobody can mess with, really. It's an interesting mechanic, kind of weird that we're getting a color 9 years into the game's life, or whatever amount of years we're at with the game's life. Kind of odd, but fine. I'm overall happy with Masters. I don't have any gripes outside the usual. I still think it's pretty diverse, and I do think that again, the meta in this game isn't real. No matter what people tell you about the meta, it's all about like, yeah, but can you actually play the deck? Because when you look at like the deck list for like finals and all these other bigger events, people will just break out leaders that are from like the first 10 sets of the game and still sweep. Because they're able to play the game at a really high level, without cheating, some of them. That just kind of propels things forward. So that's one of my favorite things about it still, is that like you can build anything you want and don't listen to people who tell you like, oh, it's not viable at all. You can probably find a way to make it viable.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite aspects of Masters, and probably the main reason why like I stay in it so much, that like I'm not so like, me playing is not so dependent on what my opponent plays. Now, don't get me wrong, Dragon Ball has a huge amount of interplayer interaction, right? Like that's the whole point of the game, moves and counter moves. However, it does come down to how well did I build my deck, how well can I play it, how well can I pilot it, decision making, all those kind of things, right? So to Asian's point, it's like, yeah, I mean, you can literally pick up almost everything. I mean, I play blue skillless Gohan. Like that deck shouldn't be a thing, yet I can do okay with it. So my point being is like, there's a way to and again, and I was just saying this too, like this set that just came out, it was only one card, but there was a card in it that fairly juices up one of the other decks that I have. So what my contribution to that question, Frolly, is going to be that I feel like Masters, regardless of the limited amount of sets we get year after year, it seems like lately, they always put so much in the sets that aren't just individualized into like each deck archetype from that set, but that can be, even if it's a single card added to an old deck, 5 sets ago, 10 sets ago, 20 sets ago, whatever it is, and then it can change that deck to make it do something different. Or I mean, when Red came out and got Explosive Dance, now all these old past Red decks can now do stuff, right? So and we just keep seeing that time after time. My biggest, I wouldn't even say like gripe or complaint really, is the inconsistency of what it seems like their level of importance that they place set to set. Because there's some sets that it feels like they cared a lot about, and there was a lot of things that is like, oh wow, this set is like a banger, and then you get a set or two back to back that's like, like I just said, it's cool, like this, it's fine, but like maybe at a local level, but it's definitely not like format changing or like whatever. It's like, cool, I'll get some new cards, play some stuff, and that's about it. So yeah, I don't know.
I like your guys' points where you feel like things are so dense because you're at set 28, set 29, that you can print, not to say mediocre cards, but generically good cards, and you prop up other decks without having to be like, oh, this is for Gohan, this does this. But you can also kind of splash into that. Mm-hmm. You guys are finally reaching a point of like card density that you could probably see that. Because I feel like some stuff's archetypal. You could feel like, cool, this doesn't do machines, and I do machines and sea monsters, and neither of these are that, so I'm not playing this set. But I feel like you guys are at one of the more healthy, to say, like release schedules. Like it feels kind of anemic when you compare it to a lot of the other ones currently with how much you get in a year. Like maybe 3 products is a little low. But comparatively to like some of these other stuff that are getting like 7 sets in a year, or like Digimon drops set January, set February, set March. With a main set, a side set, and a main set. Like that doesn't even feel like time to breathe in between a new meta. Like we're just going straight to whatever's next.
That's a good point. I'd never thought about like the card density, because I'm not gonna lie, to a certain extent, having only 3 sets back when compared to when we had sets every couple of months was kind of like, damn, what's going on? But to your point about card density, yeah, but one card in this set can now change 5, 10, 15 different decks. I mean, I'm thinking about the Black Trunks that came out that is now relevant for literally any black deck, where it just lets you speed up your engine in pretty much any deck that's black. Doesn't even have to be Saiyans, which is crazy. You have another black card that's for Union cards, and pretty much all of my favorite decks run Union fusion cards. So it's just like random stuff like that, where you're like, oh, this is actually relevant. I didn't anticipate it being relevant. And if you had so many cards coming out every set, like every 2 months, if you had stuff coming out, that could get like just kind of impossible to keep up with and make the cards actually feel less like meaningful. So maybe because the game is so quote unquote mature, this cadence where it's basically 4 products, I guess if you include the anti-box, is the right number, because it gives you actual time to experiment with this thousands of cards deep catalog, with new and old stuff. So thanks, Frawley. I didn't even think about it like that. That was, yeah, that might actually be a big benefit for Dragon Ball compared to Digimon, where it feels like it's getting caught up in perhaps the renaissance of the IP, where they're like, okay, cool, we have to make sure we're putting the card game in people's faces because we're doing all this other stuff. But I don't know if that's good or bad in the long run. I think there's probably pros and cons. I think the difference with Dragon Ball is because the card game is so dense, things don't fall out of cycle, like fall out of playability as quickly as they might do in Digimon, because it's not in the archetype. So you're not even looking at this other thing, and it can't be splashed. When in Digimon and Dragon Ball, anything can be splashed in anything within reason.
Yeah, you guys are starting to get like Magic the Gathering levels where like it feels like, hey, this is a card, now red is propped up and we can prop up one color. Or like, hey, we print this. This just kind of pushes how the colors are currently interacting. It feels much more like you're curating, where you're like, cool, let's just try to keep everything like here. Whereas every other product, it feels like is trying to fight for your attention. And because every product is coming out sequentially faster, everyone's still screaming in your face to like get what you want. Magic the Gathering dropped Lorwyn Eclipse, a set based off a set from like 10 plus years ago. It's really cool, it's really interesting. Dropped the same day as Digimon. Like, even 2 games I play are actively dropping in the same month. So you're forced to choose, I think, sometimes between like what you get. Whereas at first I was like, oh, that sucks for Masters. 3 products, whatever, they're clearly sunlighting the game. But if it's still got a dedicated player base and it feels good, you're running into less problems than other card games are with demand, how they print, how good or easy product is to get. Like maybe truly the old thing of like 3 to 4 sets a year could really some of these games benefit from.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll make 2 points on that, because as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about it. I feel like other games that release very heavily, in terms of products per year versus something like Masters that we, saying what doesn't. I feel like Masters, whether intentionally or not, is very heavily player reliant, right? And what I mean by that is like players have to get creative in order to make the game survive, right? Because when you don't have new stuff every single month or every other month, you do have to start looking in the archives and being like, oh, I just found this set 12 leader that this set 29 card works in. I can do this with it, right? But that's very reliant on the players and the individuals themselves doing, those kind of things. Now, I think I can speak for Age and myself that we've been playing Masters long enough now that like we have a pretty good knowledge of like of the library of what is Dragon Ball. So it's like when we see a card come up, it might trigger something to be like, oh, that made me think of this. So like, and I would like to think that the majority, I won't say all, but the majority of the Dragon Ball Super Masters like community thinks similarly to that. So I think that's what kind of helps it survive in that aspect. Whereas something like Digimon, at least from my perspective, outside looking in, when you release all these new things, you take out the player reliability, because now players don't have to be creative in that sense. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that Digimon players aren't creative, because I've seen creative deck builds, but my point being is that for a lot of players, it removes the need for it, right? If they want to, they still can, but they don't have to, right? Which will lead into my second point of, in very ironic fashion, the term power scaling, right? Because we all know in the Dragon Ball anime, power scaling is just, it's a whole nother topic. But in the card game, I feel like it's quite the opposite, right? Because typically in a card game's life, power scaling tends to weed out the older decks, right? Whereas in Dragon Ball, I don't feel like it does for the most part. Sure, there's going to be some decks that are made irrelevant, or even with what they get added, can't do anything. In my history of Digimon, I just kept seeing older and older decks fall into the abyss of irrelevancy, because like the new stuff that came out, like they just couldn't keep up. No matter what you added to it, no matter what it's like, oh cool, I got this new card for it. Maybe it'll make it come back into the daylight. And it's like, nah, we got this new, I don't know if it's still a thing, but like this purple hybrid deck, it's like, he ain't doing nothing against that, right? Or something like that. So I remember when Crossheart came out, it's like you're not doing anything against Crossheart because it's so fast or it's so, does all these things. So that's not this. Again, I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying Digimon versus Masters, one's better than the other. I'm just saying I feel like as a dedicated Masters player, I do think there is some benefit, even though we may not see it day to day, of not having these consistent releases as often, because it contributes to the whole life of the game, right? It's just, I think it's hard to then be like, oh, if, like Frawley was saying, if we don't get all these, it looks indicative of sunlighting the game, because less releases tend to mean less support, and then over time they just kind of fade out. But it's like, if they're keeping as much care in the releases that they are doing, even if the decks set to set may not resonate with certain people or whatever, hey, this set's not for me or whatever, there's always going to be something for somebody at some point, right? So I don't know. It's, sorry for my rambling, but that's, like I said, I got all these, I was thinking about all that, and I'm like, the way that these games are released and the different approaches, even though within the same, like both Bandai, like the different approaches of them is just interesting.
Something I was going to add to that, though, when you said that, Dan, is I also think that Dragon Ball Masters players are a different breed of Bandai card game player. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't think I've ever met somebody who's played Masters and actually, like, gotten into it who's been like, oh, I hate that game. Like, almost every person I've ever talked to who plays Masters, like, consistently or even semi-consistently is like, I absolutely love this game. And it's just a much different energy than how it feels like when you talk to a Digimon player, ourselves included, we're like, man, I absolutely freaking hate da-da-da-da. Like, it's always so, I wouldn't say always so negative, but like, there's always like that corner that's very just like unhappy with either the state of the game or unhappy with the direction of the game, or is constantly going, well, it used to be like this, and I really miss when the formats were like this. I don't feel like I see that as much with Dragon Ball, and maybe it's just I'm not talking to the right people, and I hope to not talk to those people, but where like it just feels like the Dragon Ball community really enjoys the game, is very dedicated to the game, and it's probably one of Bandai's most vocal in a good way communities, but also is very like invested more so than I think some of the others, because with Digimon as an example, just as someone who used to play it nonstop, I don't know how I would have handled sets being that far apart and feeling like there's not really much to do, because so many things just aren't compatible and there's no reason to mix and match. I think it's gotten better from what I've seen with Digimon because of the way DNA works and all this other stuff. Like, you can do more of that. The power creep is just crazy. I think that's always seems like the biggest drawback from what I've seen with Digimon is the power creep is wild, and that the library doesn't feel as beneficial no matter what you do. You're always looking for whatever the new staple is with the new set or the new whatever.
What's weird with Digimon, I feel like I prefer side sets, and they can be crazy. They can be definitely wildly overpowered. There could be better strategies in them, but they seem to get eclipsed even quicker than other decks, which is weird. And I feel like they have some of the weirdest building archetypes. Dora Brick Mom comes from that. Three Great Angels comes from that. Like, really wacky, out of the box kind of builds. I can't remember the Four Great Dragons. I think it's Four Great Dragons. Like, that's, no one talks about that, or Fang Longmon, but like, those are really cool decks that like did unique things. And I mean, we talk about power creep. Bandai is the most dog eat dog game, it feels like, because they have so many things fighting for the spotlight, and I don't think they're gonna cut anything easily, but I do think they're looking at everything. Like, when Gundam was announced, I was like, cool, like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen to Digi. I think it's big, but compared to fan base and size, and like, I've seen people come out for Gundam who I've never seen play a card game. I guess that's just what other card games do. But it was one of those things where, like, it does feel like I have no room to breathe, because like, even obviously I've explained January, February, March. Our next set after that is May. Like, we're gonna get an April to breathe in and do like big tournaments, but it seems like while big tournaments are when no big tournaments are happening, or like just regional stuff is happening, they don't care. Crazy release schedule. Then they slow down for like big events, so that way they don't have to rebalance or like emergency ban anything, and then we go back to the same stuff. So yeah, and it's archetypal. Like, it definitely has that thing of like playing Guillemons in Gallantmon decks is just better than playing other red babies, unless it gives you a huge benefit or a reason to do so. Mm-hmm. which I mean, yeah, it's all card games though. Like you can still enjoy it, and it's definitely gonna have waves of things going on. I'm just glad it's still doing like innovative things, and I hope it continues to do innovative things because it lives in its own space, really. But yeah, like between this, like and product release for everything, like if you play multiple Bandai games, I don't know how you keep up because you have One Piece every month. You don't have a Digimon. And then you have Gundam every third month. Like, if you are playing multiple of these games, you are constantly consuming new things for each game and trying to keep up on wildly shifting grounds as like different types of cards come out or like different combos that start to exist.
Yeah, and that's not even to take into consideration Union Arena too, which again I know is a lot more I wouldn't say niche. It's a lot more individualized, right? Because it's, it's IP based, of course. But I've even found myself like, yeah, I take to the IPs that I familiarize with and that I relate to. But there's some that like Asian likes to play Bleach a lot, and I'm like, I've never seen the show. I don't know nothing about it, but I'm like, I love the Bleach decks, right? And sidebar, we're about to get we just got announced that Bleach Volume 3 is coming. So just more stuff for it, more support and all that. And I'm like, I'll give it a shot, right? I like what the decks do. Yeah, I don't know the show. I don't know, but I'm like, I like the game. I like these deck archetypes. Why not try it? And they come out pretty much every month. We had some months last year that had 2 in a month. Like, so yes, to your point, Frawley, if you're any type of Bandai game connoisseur, it can be very overwhelming. So as a Masters player, I do get a little, I wouldn't say disappointed, and I wouldn't even go as far as like let down. It's just kind of like, this set wasn't really for me. Like this most recent one wasn't really for me, but like I'm okay, right? Because you do have this kind of well of, a product that comes. But yeah, I genuinely, I'll button it with this. I genuinely don't know what a healthy release schedule would be like, because we do have examples of both ends of the spectrum, right? Very frequent and not a lot. So it's like you would like to, common sense would be like, well, just put it right in the middle. But like even in the middle, we've had that. It's like that doesn't necessarily mean, I think it's game specific, right? It's how the game is that kind of dictates what kind of release schedule works for it. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what 2026 and who's to say too, because we haven't had a lot of, at least I haven't seen a lot of announcements for like later into 2026 for some of these games. I'd be curious to see if maybe they audible and try something different. I don't know.
Yeah, great point, Dan. Took the thought right out of my head.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how all that shakes out. But it was also interesting too when you talk about Bandai games in particular, right? Is like they're specifically Masters. We are also getting a new structure for our pricing for events, and frankly, I think that's awesome because now you have actual incentive to do the regionals again. Because I would argue that we haven't had strong incentive to do regionals since like the Surging Attack Broly was in the release pack, right? Because basically you go and participate, and your participation is gonna probably plus you $30 at minimum. So you spend 30 and you're gonna at least get back 60. Because of just like the participant pricing was phenomenal. But now they have they're gonna be doing lucky prizes, which will be 4 serialized cards that will randomly be distributed across the participant pool. So just by participating, there's a chance you could get a serialized card that will probably go from anywhere from like $300 to $1,000, being generous. I know it's a wide range, but depending upon what SCR they pick, all that fun stuff, because people are thinking it might be SS4 Gogeta because of its Gogeta and duh. But we'll kind of have to wait and see. Before it was Beast Gohan, that was a really big one, and then the other one was Uncontrolled Rage. I can't remember the actual name of the SCR, but it's something close to that.
Bursting Rage.
Bursting Rage, yes. And they changed the art to Goku turning Super Saiyan for the first time against Frieza, which is really cool. Or at least the moment where he's screaming about Krillin. So really, really interesting that they're making this change, because I think that says to me for Dragon Ball, cool, they're still heavily invested. And I think now they're focusing on probably the more important thing, which is the actual like events and like how to increase turnout and how to encourage people to want to kind of play in these things. And updating the pricing is the best way to do that. They've also added a top 16, or they took away top 8, and now it's top 16. And then there's top 64 as well. There might be top 32. I'd have to actually look at the list real quick, but overall they're readjusting the pricing, and I'm I'm excited, and I might actually play in the season for that.
I mean, I'm so kind of concerned with serialized cards because I feel like there's a correct way and incorrect way to do it. I like the idea of doing this for just participation because putting it into a product does not make it necessarily more desirable to me. I was already going to buy product and hopefully try to hit the jackpot regardless of what the jackpot was. And I don't love serialized cards. I think it's fine for those who like want to chase it, and I get the idea of exclusivity and stuff like that, but I don't know, that doesn't drive me in the same way. I'm sure the second they release a Sasasi one for Digimon, I'll be all over it, and I'll have to track it down. I'll have to get one of 500, which will suck. But until that point, like, it's got to really resonate with you. I prefer this way, the idea of like just joining. It's even easier to talk a friend into like, dude, man, just do your first 3 rounds. You're already getting them plus $30. That's how I've talked other friends into doing a couple rounds at a thing we're already at. But then to be on top of like, hey man, like, what if you hit it and it's 300? Like, what happens if you do even just plus out like 5 times what you paid entry for? That could be cool. I do like the idea of prioritizing events and event prizing and making it more interesting to go, because Dan said earlier that the lifeball of Dragon Ball is the fact that there's unique builders and people who want to be building, which I totally like as a good point, because games and other formats only exist because players are passionate about the game and how it plays. And at the same time, you reestablish that, like, well, we should be playing the game and you should be going to events, provided you can. Bring more to Canada. That'd be nice. But that's a separate gripe I have.
Yeah, something I want to add to that too, clarify too, for folks is like, so what they've done is the online and the offline regionals are actually 2 different like pools as well, which is pretty cool to encourage more offline play. But I also think it might be to discourage some of the cheating in online regionals, which is nice because the pricing isn't as premium, right? So you get your lucky prize, which has nothing to do with your performance. So if you're a cheater or not, you could still be rewarded, which is nice. And then it's only top 64, top 16, and champion rewards. Meanwhile, offline regionals do not have a lucky prize, but you have top 64, 16, top 8, top 4, and then champion. So it should, and for participation, you get a higher participation for offline regionals than you in online. So you'll get 1 extra deluxe pack, an event pack for offline, which is nice. Get people to like just travel out. But yeah, I also, one of the things I appreciate for Dragon Ball recently is Bandai has been actually punishing people for cheating and getting them up out of there, because that's been a big part of our community forever, and people like haha joke about it, but like it's like a real thing. And it's really, really, really unfortunate. A lot of the top people that you might consider top players, there are some things that are questionable that have occurred on stream and off stream. It's yeah, much different than I think how other games are handled. So I'm hoping that this also kind of changes that energy about the game too. But now we're just kind of waiting to see what some of that prizing actually looks like. Like, what is the serialized card? Like what SCR are we picking?
Oh man, that definitely never happens in Digimon. Definitely not in our last big thing of the year. Absolutely. I'm glad.
Damn. It's infected everywhere. You can't escape it.
It's just Bandai players, dog.
Yeah. I will say, for me, I think I've said this before too, but because I think the last event, and I say that lightly because it was an online regional, but I think the last one I played on was like summer of last year. And it was fine. I didn't do, the greatest, whatever, but I, like Frolly said, I played my rounds out because like I paid for the event and got my prizing, and that's when they had the alt art packs, whatever, and I ended up getting the top 64. Granted, I think there's still only like 112 players or something, so it wasn't like anything spectacular. The bottom line was I got my prizing, and definitely plussed on it, so that was great. And I think if you like in that kind of a sense, like if you're just doing like an offline regional, get participation, some potential for some good prizing, and then potentially if you play well and all that. I think personally, and I've said this time and again, I think with offline regionals, I think there needs to be more Bandai involvement. Specifically, I wouldn't necessarily say removing altogether the quote-unquote third parties that are responsible for organizing it and running it. They could still, sub that out if they want to or whatever. But I feel like in order for it to, if I'll preface this by saying, if they want it to be those type of events, they need to make it feel like an event, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I've been to a couple of offline regionals, both for Digimon and for Dragon Ball over the last couple of years, several years, I should say. And they will run well, depending on the store that you go into or who's running it and all that. But it definitely just feels like a big local tournament is what it feels like, as opposed to, there's, a couple other games that I've played that going to a regional that ranges anywhere from, 500 to 1,000 players. And it's like, it feels like an event. Like, you feel like you're at a sporting event, right? Now, can Bandai do that? Can they afford it? Because again, they have so many games. Can they, would they pick and choose, or would they do? I mean, Bandai Card Fest obviously was, somewhat of an example of that. However, that was a whole other issue. My point being is like, I feel like event wise, if you're going to do those kind of things and want the type of turnout you want, regardless of price, I do think the prizing is a plus. I think it's definitely a positive in the right direction. But event wise, it needs to feel more like an event. It needs to feel like if I'm going to travel somewhere, I don't want to travel just to go to some like card shop or, small little, event hall or something to like play what looks like just table set. It's like, and maybe that's just like bougie on my part. I'm like, give me the Hilton kind of thing or the Ritz, but like, I don't know, like you're taking time to like travel and like do this whole thing, whether it's solo or with friends. Usually a lot of people go in groups and they want it to be like, feel like, an experience. It's like, you got to do that at the event. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that because again, I know resource wise, I don't know if that would be something they'd entertain, but I think that would be push them over the top.
It should just feel more. It should feel like more than dudes at tables, right? Like,
yes, yeah,
like that. I think is like, it's fine, but like for the level that it feels like Bandai even wants to do these things at, it's like you see the vision, but they like don't always meet the goal. And I think you see that especially around, my perfect example for this is their videos for learn to play videos, where like the concept is great, but like, yo, you need to hire a better editor. Like there needs to be like the sound mixing is effed up. Like the music is all I'm hearing. I can't even hear the dialogue. The only reason I know what's happening is because you put subtitles, right? Like there's certain things where you're like, this is really cool, but like there's some key pieces missing here, and I don't understand what the fuck happened. And I think that's true for a lot of Bandai's front-facing work. So me and a group of friends just went to this is total tangent, but whatever, it's Bandai related. They were doing a screening of Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, like the movie that came out in '98. And it was like 4K remastered, blah blah blah. And before that, they had like the some of the folks who worked at Ocean Group at Ocean Dub, like talking about the production of the show. But like the video they recorded opens up, the people on screen aren't mic'd, right? So they're using the onboard mic from the camera. So you hear all this ambient noise instead of like them talking. And so they ask them the question and they have the question pop up on the screen instead of like having someone ask them a question and making it audio based. It was like the production value was just so like, what are we doing? Like, y'all are a multi-million-dollar company. Where's the production value in these places where it feels like it should count the most because it's so public facing? And what made it even worse was in the middle of this interview thing, suddenly the people are mic'd up, like they have mics on, and the sound quality improves. It's like, you could have just gone back and reshot. Like you took the time to shoot this and you have half of it without the microphone and the other half with. I think that level of, I wouldn't call it work ethic, that might be too harsh, but that level of attention to detail kind of bleeds out to everything. And it just feels like they have all these really great ideas, but no one is saying, yo, we should not do this if we can't do it right. And like, I think that's kind of like the core of their problem, even in their events and like and how they handle a lot of the stuff across their business. Sorry, Bandai. It's just the way that it shakes out.
I mean, Bandai puts it all on third parties that have to make it work, that have to do stuff. And I shouldn't say they have to do stuff. It's their option, and they've chosen to do so. And I mean, I've only been to like the one big regional recently that like was in Niagara Falls. That was really fun. I had a good time. It did feel a little bit like Dudes at Tables, especially like when you're at round 6 and upwards, which is also my new band name. But like, it was still a fun time. Like, I didn't get to go to Digimon Card Fest, but they had the exclusive sleeves you could only buy at Bandai Card Fest. I don't know that I want necessarily it to be like a monetary thing all the time, But like exclusive products could be a really cool way of pushing product. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to shill or to give them more reason to charge us premium, but like have something exclusive or something that could like draw you to it or make it more worth the trip. I guess that's what we're asking for in events currently. But yeah, it's always been on the third party Bandai. I mean, Pokemon shells out. I don't know if they shell out as much as they should, but they have more to shell out, so they do throw away a little bit more money. Whereas like when we're talking about production value or stuff, like some of it's just like how much do we want to throw at this? How much extra do we want to put on top versus how much are we gonna make? And being bottom line-ish makes it feel kind of cheaper when it does suck.
Yeah. It's such a sorry, Dan. I feel like you
No,
just
no, go. No,
yeah, it feels like such a like it's just a mixed bag, man. I think that's the big thing with them. Like Card Fest is cool. Dragon Ball Z Battle Hour a few years ago was dope. I think if they can find more ways to combine events and like make it feel like a con for these things, like regionals, I guess I get it. Dude at tables is probably the best you're gonna get at a regional, but like. Though even the way that they spread out Card Fest is like, is this Nats? Is this Ice? Like, how do we brand these things? And maybe that's also part of their problem is like their branding is also like, you can tell that they're just trying to figure out like, what are we as an organization? Like, what are we doing here? And like, what is our goal? It feels like that thing is constantly moving. At least that's my perspective as like from like a player's perspective and just like a fan's perspective, you know?
I'm so glad you actually, because I'm glad I let you go first, because the way you just framed that made me think of it like it helped me organize my thoughts. What I was going to say is that for Ollie's point that like I have been to a couple Pokemon regionals and it's like they've been doing this for decades now. So it's like they have to Agent's point, they have this end goal, they have this structure that's in place that worked and like this end goal, right? Whereas like I feel like Bandai is like, what are we doing? To your point is like. What's the point of going to these regionals? Let's take out, like Frawley said, let's take out the monetary value of it, right? Sure, you're going to get promos, you're going to get participation, all that stuff that's already a given, right? Because like, what am I paying for aside from playing in the event? What am I going there for, right? And placing high. That's the goal. So whether it's rack up championship points, get placements for this, or get qualifications for these, for all this point, exclusivity events or whatever it is, build towards something, right? And I feel like the problem is that they continue to put on these events, whether it's a regional, whether it's a store championship, Nats or whatever, with no real like, okay, all of this that we're doing in this picture that we've painted contributes to this, like this road, right? And without any direction, and this by the way, tangent, this holds true for anything in life, PSA for everybody. If you don't have like a direction that you're heading to, like to a specific destination, then it's not going to amount to anything, no matter how much work you put into it, no matter what the production value is, because that's my concern is I'm like, yeah, I would love a higher production value, but then to what end? Like what is it leading to, right? Like what am I as a player trying to accomplish? Because at the end of the day, it's the players that support the game and that, go forth with that. So yeah, I'm not saying I need a full 10-ring circus to come to town every time a regional's here, but yeah, it would be a little bit nicer if I wasn't, if I didn't have to basically succumb to like whoever is in charge of putting on the regional at that event hall and say, this is how they're going to run it. This is how they're going to judge it. Because we've had those issues. This is how they're going to handle the people that they're familiar with and all that. It's like, it needs to be more officialized if we're going to go, because if not, then make that clear that it's more on a quote unquote casual basis, right? Like you can still play competitive, you can do all that, but let's not, call a spade a heart and say like, this is our competitive scene, but then you as the company don't take it that serious, obviously, right? So I don't know. I think for me, that's what I can't really speak much. I don't know if I'd actually like get into it like super competitive, but there and again, it's like, would you draw in more players like myself that do play, regularly and casually, whatever, if you had more of a structured competitive scene, right, and supported it? I don't know.
I mean, I think when you're running a million games, coming up with like a broadcast team, a team that literally just or some kind of people that you farm out that like record, like that live stream the events and like publicize them makes sense. And who knows, maybe they're building towards that. Maybe I'm giving them way too much credit with the idea of them building up like a whole new mini brand, like the Bandai Card Games brand within the brand. Maybe there's something on the horizons. Who the hell knows when that's going to happen? It seems like maybe they're thinking about these things, asking these questions. It's more of a question of like, all right, so when do we get there? When is that time going to be a thing? And when are you actually going to talk about it publicly? Or are you just going to do it one day and then you're going to wake up like, yo, we're now streaming every regional that happens across our games? Possible, doubt it, but possible. So who knows?
I mean, we've been saying, if you listen to any of our episodes, that everything feels like an experiment, and we just keep doing different experiments with different games. Digimon followed a lot of what Masters did. One Piece kind of took a little bit off Digimon. It's just been a learning curve for them every single time, and they're just seeing what sticks. And I feel like being non-committal like this for them seems the most financially correct. By being like, we can't hyper invest in Gundam, what if it falls? But by not investing in it and by not prioritizing it, you're not doing it any services. You are letting the winds of fate carry it instead of at least putting like a good push behind it before it gets going.
Yeah, from a completely like strictly business like perspective, it's risk versus reward assessment, right? Like how much are they willing to put into it for the overall outcome, right? Because again, we've talked about, you got the big three or whatever, like how much they put into their games and what they get out of it. Is Bandai really willing to, you know, I wouldn't even say do the exact same thing, but mimic that same type of, you know, game plan to say, yeah, we're going to do the same thing. But to Frawley's point, it's like, well, what if it fails? Well, to the opposite point, what if it doesn't? Like, what if you, but again, to Asian's point, it's like, but at this point you have such a big like card game library. Which ones do you prioritize? Do you do the whole thing and just make it like an entire like Bandai team, and then you just get like, I do feel like they're in a unique spot that they have so much at their disposal, but at the same time it could also be like a bad thing too, because it could be deterring them from going all in either as a collective or even individually, because it's like, because then what they prioritize one game, one falls by the way. So it's like it's kind of a catch-22, I feel like. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do that. I'm sure there's more to come. But kind of speaking about more of their games and experimentation, Fusion World, which I feel like was the hated child by members of the community initially because it was very confusing. But now I'm seeing a lot of, I wouldn't call it backpedaling, but like people who are like, oh, maybe Fusion World is, you know, an interesting game. So for additional context, looks like we're getting a new mechanic, which actually sounds really cool, and I hope that they adapt it for Masters, called Key, where the a card will get a certain amount of, will get an energy marker underneath it, and then certain cards will be like delete or remove X amount of energy markers to do a certain thing, which sounds like super simplistic, or kind of like that doesn't seem interesting. But for as basic as Fusion World has been, that actually sounds really cool. So I've been looking at some cards where there's like a new Gohan leader that looks cool enough that I may actually end up buying this set and playing very, very casually. It's Gohan, it's Beast Gohan to be specific. And y'all know how I feel about my GOAT. And there's a card called Social Beam Cannon, to where, you know, you remove X amount of ki from underneath your, I think it's your leader or any Gohan card, and then you gain 10k power for each ki card removed, and it only costs you 1 energy. Because even in Master, something like that would be busted and sounds really cool. And every time the leader swings, it amasses ki. So it's like this whole new interactivity that I've found quite interesting for that game, because it felt like it would never get kind of that level of complexity or that level of engagement, at least initially. They've also added the evolve mechanic, which that came I think 2 sets ago, which is the exact same thing as it is in Masters. You pay X amount and you basically digivolve to the next version of that card. They've also now added fusion evolve, which is basically Union Batara / fusion, but they've kind of collapsed that one keyword into like one, which actually I think would be better if Masters did that instead of having all these freaking different keywords that kind of get people confused. But it feels like Fusion World is starting to absorb more of Masters mechanics, and I'm wondering at what point do we think Fusion World for Masters players becomes something like, maybe I should start playing this simultaneously, because it is adding more value to the game, because it looks like you're going to start being able to play big bodies for not 8 energy, which is actually pretty cool.
I think that was, at least for me speaking, because I did play Fusion World for a good bit when it came out because I wanted to try it. That was a big deterrent for me, was how slow the game felt, because you basically were just playing one body per turn, right? To be fair, it's not like Masters where, like, if you play a body, your opponent's almost guaranteed to remove it. It's a little bit more difficult than that, because if they're swinging at that, then they're not swinging at your leader. So, like, the game does have some complexity to it. It just felt very... The complaints that you would hear is very linear, right? There wasn't a lot of, it's pretty simplistic, but also, like, basically pay energy, play card, do your turn, pass to the next, right? Rinse and repeat up until you get to those turn 7, turn 8, turn 9s, when you have a good amount of energy amassed. So yeah, seeing this would kind of, I feel like, accelerate that game state, obviously not to the point of Masters where it becomes like, super convoluted at times, or like, completely toxic or whatever, but enough to where it's like, okay, the game has a good pacing now, right? The only thing I can see with that, and I don't necessarily know if it's a bad thing, going back to the whole like experimentation conversation, is this might I almost probably guarantee, unless they figure out a way to do, I don't know, integrate it, but would weed out older set decks, right? That were basically just like, pay 5, play this, pay 6, play this. You can't really play those anymore if you have newer decks that are a little bit more accelerated. Not crazy, but faster, obviously, or, do a little bit more. So, but again, they chalk it up to, hey, the first, year and a half of the game, we were trying to figure things out. Now we've got to kind of, streamline, boom, we can go with that. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, speaking optimistically, I don't know what the implications of that means for Masters. I'm just going to say, hey, we're going to have 2 Dragon Ball games, but, we'll see. And then obviously, of course, Fusion World still has its online clients. I'm curious to see how, like, they integrate that with that and go with there. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just something new to try out. I think it's a good thing overall.
It's funny because this is how I feel about Gundam, where people are talking to me, or Riftbound, which I've tried a little bit of, which is everyone is talking about meta. And I'm like, you are 2 sets into a game. Your game is not even cooking. Your game doesn't even have all of its colors developed and ready. Like, set 5 and onward is like where I almost want to start looking at stuff, which sucks. If you want to be an early adapter, you better be in day 1 on set 1. But there is this thing to me where I'm just like, when people are like, for Riftbound, like week 1, they were like, these are the top meta champions, because there's only 12, I think, or 14 decks you could actually build that were legal, at least like who you read as your champion. And it was like, oh, it's so good and it's money and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, like, this doesn't matter though. Like, unless you want to be winning champions right now, unless you want to be going out and like participating in the highest level, trying to cash out, which, I mean, I get it. It's just crazy to me when people are talking about meta, and I'm like, I don't even feel like your game has unique mechanics yet, because you aren't 4 to 5 sets in and like doing interesting things, which sucks, because like, at the same time, I shouldn't be like poo-pooing, but like, I don't know, that's how I feel, where it's like, oh, Fusion World's now getting interesting a year in plus. It's like telling me a show is good after 12 episodes. Like, am I going to go 12 episodes? I don't know. Maybe.
That's real. Yeah, that's real. I mean, I think with Fusion World 2, it was just a lot of like, why are you here? Right? Because like truthfully, it's like, but like Masters already exists. And my fear, air quotes, is at what point do they become the same game? Like, at what point does Fusion World, like, the only difference is counters, which, I mean, maybe that's kind of where it seems like maybe that's where it's going to head. I'm sure that there's going to be other things. Just very interesting to see. I'm curious to see how long these 2 games kind of coexist. I hope they do, because I love Masters and I don't want to jump over to another Dragon Ball game. Not trying to speak that out into the world, but like looking at some of the mechanics for the most recent stuff for Fusion World, I'm like, well, at what point are they different? Like, are they going to continue to be different? Because we're already seeing stuff where it's like, oh, you can union infuse a big body for like 2 energy. That's very close to what we're seeing right now in Fusion World, or in Masters. So I don't know. I feel like I now have to like pay a little more attention to Fusion World, just in the case it's like, writing's on the wall. I guess we gotta jump ship at some point. I'm hoping that doesn't happen for another many years, but I don't know. Again, it's just like, at what point do the 2 games actually like become different, right? In terms of mechanically how they play and kind of like what you're seeing in both metas. Yeah,
because obviously very, like, technically they're very aligned with like the gameplay and the game state. It's just like the perfect example, like the things that, and I was just kind of touching on this, the things that you would do on turn 6, turn 7 in Fusion World, you're doing that on turns 2 and 3, typically turn 4 in Masters, right? Again, you have the counter aspect, which obviously Fusion World doesn't have as of yet. They're starting to develop new things, but overall, if you just kind of look back and said, okay, I'm gonna take out the specifics and just look at game flow, right? Back and forth turns, the type of bodies I'm playing turn to turn, the type of interactions I'm having, it mimics each other, right? So to Agent's point is like, if you start integrating more, not even the same, but more complex interactions into Fusion World, it does start looking even more and more like Masters, and maybe starts backing those turns up even a little bit more, so to where you feel like the game, like I mentioned earlier, the pacing starts feeling very similar. So I don't know if this is their overall plan, that, you know, for all I was saying, a year and a half into the game, here we are, that it's starting to kind of get its legs under it, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe that was their intention the whole time, to say, hey, we're going to work out the kinks, trial and error, experiment some, and if we see the game starts taking off and we like how the direction it's going into, maybe now we can officially start sunsetting Masters. Who knows, you know? Because I will be real, as much as I would like to have them both, because I just love Dragon Ball, I personally, from a business perspective, don't see, if both games play very similar, I don't see the value in having both of them, right? Because like, why are you going to support both? Because as a company, you're essentially splitting your player base, because most people are not going to play both at the same level. You might have people that play both games, but I might have just a couple of Fusion World decks and all of my Master stuff, or vice versa, right? So from a business perspective, it's like, I'm not really fully in one or the other. So for them, going back to the whole point is, well, then they can't invest fully into both of them because they have to pump out support for both of them. So I don't know. I at the end of the day, we're going to have a Dragon Ball game. That is just the reality of it. I don't think we're going to lose like a Dragon Ball TCG altogether. It's just who comes out at the end of the day, like which one is the one that's going to say, hey, we're the future of the game, you know? Could be both still, we don't know, but if I had to put my money on like a betting horse, I would say it's going to end up being one at some point. I just don't know which one.
Yeah.
I mean, to be the black sheep of this conversation, I almost wonder if that decision obviously isn't already made. Because trying to get the master players onto the Fusion World train was like trying to connect a caboose to like a moving train. Where it's like, they're almost there, maybe it'll go, maybe it'll latch, but we aren't really there. And what's funny is it's like, if you think about how much R&D they have to put into each set, and like we said for Digimon, there are potentially 6 to 7 sets this year. I don't even know if that's accurate. It might be more, but it's close to that number, including side sets as full sets, not including reprint sets, not including like the other stuff they're coming out with. How much R&D do they really have to put into Masters if they only do 3 sets a year? Like, you almost could keep both games if they want to keep doing Fusion World at the pace of a current modern TCG that's coming out for them. And they still get to eat and make good on the Masters players every, 4 months. It's like, it's almost like setting up a game that you're like, not to say retiring, but like, I know RuneScape has like had this kind of thing, or like World of Warcraft to certain degrees of just like, we just have people who come back. We just have people who love this thing and they keep paying this thing and they'll still play this thing themselves. So you almost, I don't think it's necessarily likely. I think you guys are correct that Fusion World probably ends up preceding Masters once, enough popularity dies. But if they want to just keep at it, I guess I understand now that Bandai's just like, we put like a little bit of R&D into this about a third of the time for every other game, and it keeps netting us money.
Yeah, it's interesting with Fusion World or with Masters too, because like I think where they also keep everyone and make people go, oh shit, is I think of all their card games, I think Masters, they spend the most time on physical design of the cards. Like the way that the alt arts look, the everything is phenomenal. The way that secret rares look. And so I think that is a big like driver, right? Because even like this last set, I did not care about fusion rifles for the most part, because literally none of the leaders did I really care about. There's 10 of them. I was only interested in one, and that was it. But the alt arts for each of those leaders was phenomenal. And I was like, man, if I pull any of them, I'm really gonna have to think about building it because it just looks so good. So that's the one thing where it feels like maybe they use Masters as a real testing bed too for like all their production needs on physical cards, because it feels like we get like the prettiest cards out of all other games. Union Arena, the signature rares or the signature cards, I think follows close behind that. To be honest, maybe One Piece is manga rares, but like I don't really look at them like that. But like just signature rares in Union Arena also feel like really premium as well.
I think that's where we would see the writing on the wall if we started seeing Fusion World specifically start coming out with. And the reason I say this because I have a couple like just display cards on my desk, and I'm looking over here. Broly's my guy, but I have the Tragedy Foretold. It's the old, I don't know what set it was, but they're the I guess SPR of a gold foil, all that, and like the art of that is just like gorgeous, right? If Fusion World started doing similar type of arts like that, where like the card itself is almost telling a story through its image, right? Not that Fusion World cards look bad, but I've said this before that I'm like, they're they're cool like scene excerpts. I feel like for certain things, for a lot of them, or character portraits and things like that. Like artwork's always going to be on point, but the level, like to Agent's point, the level of thought and like design that goes into the card itself. If we start seeing that with Fusion World more frequently, and they start adding in things like the equivalent of, I don't know what they would call them, but like SPRs or SLR leaders or the concept rares, whatever, like those type of like alternate type things, that's when we can start seeing like, oh, okay, they're starting to pump a little bit more time and effort and thought and care into the artwork of these cards, that I could see them going down that route. As of right now, it's like, okay, they're doing it well enough that it's up to the level of quality that we as Dragon Ball players and just Bandai card players in general expect because of these other games. But it's not anything crazy where I'm like, dude, like Agent's point, like, dude, if I pull this card, I don't play red at all, but I would play red just because this card is like, phenomenal or whatever, right? So I feel like that's kind of where we would start seeing the shift to, that game.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good indicator. Although I will stand on game. Okay, Digimon has the best with their 2-star and their SPs. You can fight me. They look better. Blackboard Gray Ace. Blackboard Gray Ace is the most gorgeous card I've ever owned in my whole life.
Digimon looks good. I'm not gonna lie, Digimon does look good, but I'm just saying you're not topping shit like this, man. Like, I'm sorry, like you're not like, I don't know, bro.
I'm already over that. I'm already over that.
Look, I don't know, bro. I don't know these god rares and these other things, but I respect it. I respect your opinion. I mean,
same here.
Digimon is up there. I've been falling victim to that. I think if Digimon had the same level of like embossing and kind of like that 3D print on those cards, then I would be like, yeah, like if I could get that on those SPs, I would spend way more money on Digimon, even though I'd have no intention of playing. But fair enough.
That's fair. I said staying on game. I'm sorry about that.
No, 10 toes down. I get it. Respect.
No, and that's what I was gonna say. This isn't me trying to like stay on the fence, but like I think Bandai's like commitment to quality of cards is, compared to most other games out there, regardless, is damn near unmatched, right? Like I think we can collectively say that. At that point, it just comes down to preference and all that. But my point being is, I'm like, if you were to look at it as objectively as you could, like singling out Masters and Fusion World, Masters still clears it, right? Like if you looked at it, not even because of how much longer it's been out. If you look at current Fusion World cards and current Masters cards that are coming out simultaneously, I still think Masters cards clear it, right?
I believe.
If we start seeing somewhat more of an equate to it, and even a surpass of Fusion World, then I can start saying, all right, this is where we're going. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a Bandai thing. We'll have to see what happens. But something else that I kind of wanted to jump to, I can't believe that we've been going for just over an hour, y'all. We're right back into the swing of things. But what games are you guys looking out for this year? Because I feel like we're kind of back at the cycle where there's like new shit coming out, new kind of either new and old games that feel like they're kind of getting a resurgence going into this year. Again, Digimon seems like the most ever-present one just because I can't escape it, which is actually a wonderful thing because I feel like there were so many years where I was like, whatever happened to Digimon? But are there any that you guys are like, I will pay more attention to this year? Or you're like, I really don't care?
For me, I mean, I'll still play Dragon Ball Masters, and we mentioned a Fusion World. I might, depending on what comes out. But the one that I definitely feel like if I had to pick one to focus on would be Union Arena. We get the soul leveling set next month, I believe it is. I believe it's I can't remember if it's February or March.
That one's March.
It's in March, yeah. I think it's March. But we get that in March, which I'm really excited for. And then, like I mentioned, we get a lot. I mean, there's almost a set pretty much every single month. And it definitely seems like card design, and quick little caveat, but the reason why I'm looking at it, and it's not just because I play the JJK deck, but they definitely seem committed to staying on top of current format and like game state, because they just when the game first came out, we had the band pair in JJK. Specifically, there was a Sukuna card and a Yuji card that you couldn't play together because of the interactions it had or whatever. But because of where the game's at now, even if you have those two in the same deck, it doesn't create this like overpowered because of, anyways. So point being is it's like the fact that tells me like, okay, they are looking at it. So like I can get into this game and feel like, they're not just throwing cards out in sets or in IPs and all that. And like I mentioned before, I'm actually interested in IPs that I've never even seen or watched before. Like I got into the One Punch Man stuff. I've only watched a handful of episodes of that. Love those decks. Like I mentioned, I'm definitely planning on trying some of the Bleach stuff, especially when Volume 3, officially drops. And there's a handful of other ones. So yeah, I would definitely, Union Arena is my top for right
now. I do feel like I already gave this away as a spoiler, which is like Elysium is where I'm coming back to Digimon. Elysium is where I'll have the time, hopefully I'll have the effort, and I'll want to play and I'll want to grind and do all that and hopefully get back in. Digimon is still my favorite game to play on one-on-one, at least. I didn't mind Riftbound. I think Riftbound's cool. I'm just kind of waiting for it to cook a little bit more. I do like its card design space though, because we're not just doing I battle you, you battle me, which feels like what a lot of these games kind of boil down to. Is a unique design space, and hopefully they can take advantage of that and make that feel cool and interesting. I want to try a little bit more Gundam, but I'm not holding my breath on anything. I think for the most part, my goal is to keep on, especially like the Magic train. So Magic is releasing 7 sets this year. 3 of them are their own IP. So it should be very easy for me to be like Lorwyn Eclipse. The price point is just so much cheaper because we don't have to pay the licensing fee. So I want to stay on Magic Pure. And I get a second shot of getting both of you guys into Magic because we get Marvel Heroes this year. So like, you've been playing Rivals. I know I'm coming for you. You go on to play Commander one day. I'm just telling you. So I think sticking on 2 games and not being too excited unless something blows my mind might just be my thing. And especially like what we've been talking about with Bandai, we don't know if they have anything else in the pipeline. We're not even we're less than a month into this year. We are still very much like, we have stuff planned out till May for the most part. I'm sure they got other stuff in development, but we only know really half the year of what's going to be delivered for a lot of these games. So I'll be keeping my ears peeled, and I'll try to keep my heart open to other card games. But currently, I just want to kind of grind what I love and play with what I can with friends.
That's real.
To
yeah.
Your point, Frawley, too. Oh, I'm bad. Okay.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to your point really quick, because you just made me think of something. The last 2 years, but Bandai specifically, we've gotten a new game from Bandai the last 2 years. 2 years ago being Fusion World, last year being Gundam. We could get a new one this year. Who knows? Like,
is it Union Arena too, right? Union Arena and Gundam.
Oh yeah. You're right. I completely forgot. We got Union Arena. I think that was the year before. Actually,
okay,
it might have been towards the end of the year.
It was towards the end of the year before. So 2024.
24. The end of that. But yeah. But you had Fusion World at the beginning of that, because we got Fusion World early then. Then yeah, I completely forgot about Union Arena and then Gundam. So I'm like, there's always the possibility that, like you said, probably they could just introduce something else new too, that we're like, oh, cool, we definitely got to try this. So
yeah, it's a sickness. And I think for me, looking at 26, something that I won't say I'm going back to, but I will probably side eye and watch is Star Wars Unlimited, because y'all know for the longest time that was like my favorite game, and then they said, hey, here's rotation, and it felt like a personal slight. But from what Symbiote or Rick has been telling us, it looks like Spark of Rebellion will rotate out on March 8th. And people are very unhappy with the first set of the game, because I guess the first set was done by a totally different designer and has a totally different like power creep situation, where those cards are still more relevant than the things that came out like a couple months ago. So once that set rotates out, maybe it'll be worth at least looking at. A rotation again and I are not friends, but maybe I could be convinced depending upon what's happening in that world, because that game was a lot of fun, and I really I wouldn't say I super miss it, but like it was a lot of fun. And then again, for me, it's kind of the usual suspects. Dragon Ball Masters in particular. Gundam's first year anniversary will be this year in July. So Bandai usually goes all out with those anniversary products. So really curious to see what they'll be rolling out for Gundam, because I will say, we were just talking about artwork earlier. I really appreciate that for the Gundam artwork. It's not like screenshots from the series. It's like original art, and the art is wow. It's really good. It's like, again, it's like Digimon, like actual art, not judging like the card, like the extra fluff on the card, but the actual art is really good. So I'm really curious to see what they'll do for Gundam, and just kind of like that whole kit of a first anniversary product.
I wonder if you're gonna have a situation with Star Wars where you get more kitchen table, where people want to play all sets continued, where you can just kind of play what you want and like kind of do what Magic or like Yu-Gi-Oh have done, where it's like, here's an alternative format where we've decided, fuck it, we're gonna play everything together. Like, those are always some of the cooler things, I think, especially when you can directly balance between stuff and be like, wow, this card is really over designed for like eternal play, but when we talk about it in its rotation, you're like, it was cool for a time, but then you're almost doing the Pokemon thing where you're like, this thing was a real problem anyway, it goes in the box and you don't have to worry about it no more. On to the new guy.
Yeah. The nice thing with Star Wars, I guess there is an eternal format. Some of the folks at the shop have been trying to get me to play because of that, but I'm like, nah, it's all right. It's cool. But there is an eternal format. But if like those cards are as broken as I'm being told they are, I'm kind of like, well, and what's the point, man? Like, you're still playing the first set. If somehow the first set is better than the things that came out like 2 months ago, that don't seem right. So we'll see.
Yeah, it could evolve into something kind of how like Commander was, where it's like it's not even an official format. Am I saying that right for all these Commander, where it's like it's not a format that Magic actually developed? It was player created, but then got adapted basically into the widespread masses, right? So like, absolutely, there could be something like that with Star Wars, where they can use old cards, but there's certain stipulations, there's certain restrictions, whatever, however they want to structure it. So that way you can still get use out of your old cards or whatever. But what I found in my experience, because I was on the opposite end of the spectrum as Agent was. I started with games that had rotation and moved over to games that don't. So it was kind of the backwards for me. So it's not anything new to me. I find that if a game has rotation, there's a good reason why it does. So as painful as I know it can be to be like, man, this $70 Vader that I bought or whatever it is no longer valid or viable. It's like, if I just want to keep playing the game in the long term, I understand that it's like it's contributive to that. So because man, there were so many decks that I had in other games that I played that I'm like, I would love to keep playing this, but I know if they existed now, what they could do with all, it's like the game would be unplayable. So like, you gotta have to kind of take the good with the bad, but it is kind of nice that I can just pick up a deck from 3 years ago with Dragonball and be like, yep, I'm gonna play this and it's still good, and do my thing. So give and take.
Pros and cons for sure.
Yeah.
Man, you guys got me thinking about like Dragon Ball Masters game where you have a commander, which is your leader, but every card in your deck has to be a singleton. So it has to be a one of. That'd be crazy with the 99. I don't think you guys could. I don't even know if you guys could do it with 99 cards. You probably could, but they wouldn't all be good.
With 99, probably not. You could definitely do it with like 60? 50 to 50. Yeah, 50 to 60 you could definitely do for sure. Which would be cool. Again, same thing. Like I don't know if that would ever get picked up in Dragon Ball, but you could definitely do it. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, somebody at my shop was talking about doing that. I have mixed feelings because I think about how like the cards in Dragon Ball require specific things, right? So like you like certain things you can't even play, like certain archetypes you can't even play anymore, because if you're not running 4-ofs, the deck is dead, right? Like you need certain things because it's like the leader is like requiring this, or the card requires this leader. So like I think it's definitely an interesting concept, but it'd probably work best honestly with the old leaders from like the original like first 9 sets that are very much more generic and much more like regular. which I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe somebody will experiment with that and like it will become a thing at some point because it could be fun. I would just be curious to see how you make it, how you quote unquote balance it for with the cards that cost 3 to play, or the cards are like I pay 1 and kill your whole board. You know what I mean? It'd be interesting to see how that would how that would work.
I think that's where Dragon Ball, not that it struggles, because like let's be honest, that's probably not gonna be a real thing, but like if it were to try to be, it's like Dragon Ball does really well in the game design that it's in, but if you were to try to modify it to have other formats, I don't even know if it'd be playable as opposed to say something like Magic, where you have like your standard and your commander formats and all that, where you could do it. And then of course like Star Wars, that if they end up going this eternal route and like actually making it work, they could do the same thing. So I don't know. I mean, it's I honestly didn't even think about that, because like you have cards that it's like, and if like that one card gets removed before you can like EX evolve onto it or something, it's like, well then I can't play this card either, so it kind of like nullifies that too. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
New Year's, new possibilities.
Yeah, true. Very
yeah,
true.
you never
Very
know.
true.
You never know, man. You never know.
know.
Strange times we live in. So you never know. But cool. I think that basically covers what we wanted to talk about for episode 18. Went through it, without too much pain, and suffering, thinking about things like Digimon and how it's abandoned Dan and I in particular. But it's all right. We'll maybe someday we will return. But I question that heavily.
Huge surprise. We still know how to yap.
We do. Yeah, I know, we
We do.
that's a skill we have not lost. Speaking of, are there any erratas for 2025 that we want to make for anything that we may have said in a previous episode that we kind of stuck our foot in our mouths, or something else? I have none this time.
I would say I don't think I have any. I think everything I said was completely valid.
Oh, you boys are
so.
Just perfect. Eh?
No. I'm sure. Like, dude, if I went through and like video analyzed everything, I'm sure there's tons of things that I was like, no, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I think that's the beauty of doing this, right? That like you put this stuff on camera, you record this stuff, like what our thoughts are now, and then you look at it a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and you're like, dude, how is that even a thought of that, like, that I came up with, or my perspective on things. I think that's the interesting thing about what we get to do, like with doing these podcasts. So I don't know, I'm sure I've said some stupid stuff, so it's out there.
I don't know if I have erratas. I have 3 things I want our community to try to do for the new year, if they feel up to it. But the idea is that you should support your local game store, or go out there, buy singles. Feel free to buy a sealed product, but buy singles so you can play decks, so you can get playing, so you can be here. And number 3, I want you to meet your local community. Go out to something. I don't care if you play a game and there's a night for it. Try it. I think there's far more fear about going to these things than actually like doing the thing. And like if you want New Year's resolutions here, I've given you 3 that you can actually achieve, and you can come back to me.
Thank you, Frolly. Always an advocate for the community. Yeah. And I mean that unsarcastically, like dead ass. Really appreciate that you always push people to like get outside their comfort zone sometimes, because it's really hard, y'all. I think that sometimes like it's just difficult to find a space that you either want to be in, or a space that you're like, I don't know how welcome I feel. Or I mean, I think I've told you all the story of like when I used to live in DC, and there was a card shop for Dragon Ball, and it just felt so insular that I just stopped going. I was like, I'm not playing this freaking game, because like it just felt very like, oh, these are just people who have been playing together for years, and they're kind of just like only interested in playing with each other. So it's always good to try new things and engage in community, especially in times like these. So I definitely think that's important for y'all to do when you can.
Yeah, because y'all got to remember one thing, because I learned this when I went to the Gundam release event for set 1. I walked into this little shop that's 10 minutes from my house, and everybody there seemed like they knew each other and everything, and I was the oddball out. I wasn't the first time there or whatever, and they were all really nice to me and like kind of talk, we play games, whatever. Anyways, long story short, they were all strangers at one point too. Like they all at some point or another, their own specific times, didn't know anybody there, and now they're part of a group. Is that to say that I've become best buds with any of them, whatever? I don't know, but like I'll never get to that point if I don't, so yeah, to Frawley's point, I definitely echo that. Say if you're even thinking about it, just get outside your comfort zone and don't feel like the awkwardness or whatever, because they're feeling just the same way. So, and for anybody else, I'll put this out there: if you walk in and they're just nasty people, whatever, you don't want to be there anyway. So that's completely fine. But more often than not, I can almost bet that they're more welcoming than you give them credit for. You have to just put down your walls, because if they see you as like, defensive or whatever, they're not going to be as open to, you're coming into their space, right? So like, be open and willing to share with them. So, but yeah, I think that's a great message to put out there for Ollie.
Yeah, I don't guarantee you a good time, but I will say that you might be missing out on something great in your area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
100%.
100%.
100%. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out in this episode. We will see you next month for episode 19. Peace.